everyone, welcome back to Vishnu Podcast and I am your host Jahnavi. Today we are having a special guest, Angel Penny ma'am, counselling psychologist of Vishnu Dental College. And today she is going to share us about overthinking and how to stop it. Hello ma'am, welcome to Vishnu Podcast.
Hi Jahnavi, thank you for inviting me.
Ma'am, firstly what triggers us to overthink?
Okay, there are a lot of reasons why one would overthink. It could be past experiences, it could be fear of failure, it could be uncertainty. For example, if a student has failed in a particular subject, then they sit and overthink about what if I don't make it the next opportunity. And then there's also a lot of societal pressure for perfection. So social media and society also adds to overthinking. They also think, they also add fuel to the fire. You didn't make it, you are so and so. It adds to overthinking. So there's no particular reason as such. It is very subjective. It keeps changing from person to person. But in a whole, you can say it is because of uncertainty or past experiences or failures.
Ma'am, generally people of age group 13 to 25 overthink a lot. Why?
Yeah.
What's the reason behind it?
So actually, it is not a particular age group. Now that you asked me to a pertaining age group, I would say because 13 to 25 if you take, there's a lot of changes. Not just academic wise, but there's also a lot of physical changes. There's hormonal changes also. There's a lot of development happening. But other than that, if you think about it, see, at that age, there's academic changes happening. There's peer influence happening. Your parents, at that age, you're selecting your friends to be your family more than your family to be your family.
Yeah.
So a lot of peer influence, a lot of academic pressures, a lot of pressure in terms of what is going to happen in my future. If you think of 11th and 12th, you're deciding what to do after 12th. In 10th, people say 10th is important. In 12th, people say 12th is important.
Yes.
After 12th, they'll say you. So it is a lot of pressure because there's a lot of decisions in that age to be made. If you take of 25, then there's a lot of decisions there also. Are you doing a job? Then what kind of job? If you're doing a job, are you earning enough? If you're earning enough, then what? What is the further plan? So a lot of changes happen during that age, not just physically, but also in your environment. I think that is why we tend to overthink in that particular age group.
How does overthinking affect our mind?
Okay, so generally in overthinking, what happens is, it is one thought, it starts initially with one thought, and then you spiral, it becomes this one whole mess of thoughts. So you get stuck on that one spiral. How does it affect? Is because it takes a lot of your time. Sometimes you don't know how much time has gone by when you're overthinking, and that is how it affects your mind. It also gives you a lot of stress. It raises your cortisol levels. It makes you feel like, oh my gosh, what am I stressing about? It might have started very small. Tomorrow I have test, I have to do it. Now it might go to the next overthinking part might be, what if I don't do it? Then the next one is, I might fail. What if I fail? If I fail, then I'll be eluded from my entire bunch. The next thought. Then if I'm eluded from my bunch, I'm going to lose all my friends. Next thought. If I lose all my friends, then what is going to happen? I'm going to be a pariah. Nobody is going to talk to me. Then what is going to happen? Then I'm going to lose all my status that I've held so close. This goes. And what happens? Your body starts producing hormones also that is related to this feeling that you're having. Makes you feel horrible. And then you skip meals, you sleep. So this is what happens to your body when you overthink. So how do you address it is also another thing. You need to address and analyze that I am overthinking. Often with overthinkers that happens. You don't realize you're overthinking. You just spiral, feel horrible, you sleep, next day also same thing happens. So it affects your body in ways that you know and in ways that you don't. So
How can we stop overthinking?
So the initial step to stop overthinking would be awareness. You need to know that are you somebody who overthinks? Do you have that tendency? Then you also need to analyze, what am I overthinking about? What is my trigger? For some students it might be academics. You might overthink related to academics. For some students it might be relationships. Not just the romantic kind but also friendships. It is very difficult to navigate friendships in this age. Because you might think that in first year, this is my best friend. Then third year, you have new friends and they are your best friends. It happens. So first you need to know that what is your trigger, what are the things that trigger you into overthinking, and then you also need to kind of declutter your mind. Things that help is practicing mindfulness, relaxation techniques, journaling down, what are you thinking. Something that we kind of do is we say, what are the questions that you think of? What if that happens? What if it happens? So we prepare alternatives. If this happens, it's not. But if it happens, how will you deal with it? So that could help. But one thing that I would say for overthinking, or is to first recognize, then address that you have this issue, and analyze how can you overcome this issue. But it's important to know that you have an issue before you address it. So know the issue, analyze it, come up with your triggers, and then seek help if you feel like it is an issue that you cannot deal with yourself. Usually mindfulness helps, and knowing the issue kind of helps you snip it off at the root of it. But yeah.
What are some realistic approaches to make our mind so calm and peace?
Okay, so something that we do is relaxation techniques. We suggest relaxation techniques to our students who have overthinking issues. Something else that we suggest is journaling. Another tactic that we use is giving them a time limit to take a decision. For example, when there's a impending decision to make, you overthink a lot. If I take this, this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. You need to give yourself a time limit, a realistic time limit. Also, when you're setting goals that make you overthink, you need to have realistic goals. There are students who have different things in their mind. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do everything. But that's not achievable, right?
Yes.
So you set realistic goals. If you don't have those, you overthink. Hey, this one, nothing is happening, I'm a failure, da 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 da. So mindfulness, relaxation, having particular realistic goals, and setting a time limit to kind of limit over time. If you have too much time, you keep thinking about it. But if you know that tomorrow I have to make a decision, then you cut down that. You come up with a solution. Also, something that you can do is gauge the alternatives and the pros and cons. If I take this decision, it's going to be like this. If I take this decision, it's going to be like that. So you can gauge your pros and cons. You can talk to somebody, and that is something you can do realistically.
Okay. Ma'am, is overthinking really a big issue to deal with? If yes, why?
Yes, overthinking is a very big issue to deal with. Sometimes for people who don't have that issue, it is very difficult to understand that it is actually an issue, because it not only has mental effects, it also has physical health effects. Okay, for example, somebody with overthinking or stress issues can have bowel movement issues, because it is very hefty or very hard on our physical health. It is a big issue because you're ruminating about something, and what happens is it reduces your productivity. If I'm overthinking for half an hour, what happens? My half an hour goes away. So it is an actual problem. For somebody who overthinks, you overthink to such a point that you create so much stress for yourself that the next best thing to do is sleep, or eat too much, or indulge in behaviors that is not good or productive. But if you're not stressful, what are you going to do? You're going to be productive. So it is an issue. It cuts down on your productivity, it cuts down on your mental.
What are some ways to overcome overthinking and more focus on our goals?
Okay, like I said before, it is very important that you set realistic goals. You need to know that these goals are achievable. You cannot say ki I'm going to start YouTube today. In 2 months, I need to have 2 lakh subscribers. That is still not attainable, right? But you can set attainable, realistic goals. That is the first thing. And you also need to have deadlines. You cannot have goals and then keep it for 2 years. You need to have achievable deadlines also. That is one thing you can do. Another thing that you really need to do is cut yourself some slack. It is okay to mess up. It is okay to have compassion for yourself. Ki I messed up. Something I feel students are so hard on themselves. I messed up, I lost, I failed. These are all part of being a student. When are you going to mess up? Now. So it is okay. Practice self-compassion. Have an action, and remember that action is more important than perfection. Perfection is not important right now. Action is. Are you doing something about it? So it is important to have good goals, realistic ones, and take some sort of action regarding it. It is not important that you have to achieve perfection in the first try. It is important that you make a step towards it. So you can cut down by having actual goals regarding your situation. For that, you need to realize what are you overthinking about? What can you do about it?
Ma'am, what are the long-term and short-term causes which affect our health due to overthinking?
Okay, some of the short-term effects of overthinking would be headaches, nausea, dizziness, restlessness. These are also short-term effects of overthinking. But if you talk about long-term effects, if you don't keep it in check, if you don't keep overthinking in check, it could lead to anxiety issues, it could lead to actual mental health issues which will give you a long-term effect. Some people, like I told you, can have bowel issues, can have indigestion. And another thing, like I told you, anxiety is a very good result of long-term unchecked overthinking. So anxiety can be one, then mood disorders can be one, then digestion issues, skin issues. Those with stress and overthinking usually might have skin issues. So these are some long-term effects of overthinking or stress.
Well, finally, what advices you would give to the youth regarding overthinking?
One advice I would give you guys is nothing is as complicated as you guys make it, and not every problem and not every thought needs to be overanalyzed. Sometimes it is very simple. Sometimes you just have to think about it and immediately you will have an answer that is the right answer. But if you keep thinking about it, then you will keep thinking no, then this and then that. Sometimes you say no, without anything, just tell me yes or no. That's it. One advice, don't complicate things. If it needs to be thought about, if it needs to be analyzed, then yes. Otherwise, don't. Not everything needs to be analyzed and broken down and journaled and thought. Sometimes you just, I think that's my advice. Simplify it, because it is simple. Most of it is simple at least.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am, it's very pleasant to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.